And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today, we're talking about let's get to know some guys. All right, we got some guys in college football. We'll give you six guys. All right, we might run a couple of these episodes. We don't know how many exactly we want to do of this, but these are just guys that you may know some of these guys, especially if you follow this channel. Like you should know some of these guys. Hopefully, we throw some names at you that you're like, oh, never heard of that guy. Maybe I should watch out for that guy. But in general, these are guys that we just want an excuse to talk about. All right, is really what this is. Get to know insert player here, right? Maybe a rising star, maybe a guy who's not getting enough love. That's generally the case. We're gonna give side guys some love today that maybe deserve it and maybe haven't gotten that. Sadie, look, I'm looking at your guys. I mean, you get some good players on this list. Not gonna lie, like guys that I think are going to be studs this year.
Yeah, guys that are going to rise up draft boards, guys that are going to be impactful players in conference races for sure. Your guys as well. Excited to talk about it. Obviously, we're talking about college football, so it's obviously excited to be here no matter what. All that kind of good stuff. We're getting closer. We are July. We are 1 month away. The next time the calendar flips over, it is football month. So that's fantastic.
So close. We are so freaking close. Let's get started then. First guy I want to talk about because I like talking about him, Jaden Nixon on UCF. All right, and you're like, why do I know that name? He was one of the running backs at Western Michigan last year. They had two very effective running backs going into the season. It was very obvious to a lot of people. Oh, Jalen Buckley is going to be the guy. He had an all max season, came off 1,000 yards rushing, whatever. Oh yeah. Western Michigan had a stellar offensive line last year. Stellar. We're talking about NFL talent there. All right, and you get a guy like Jaden Nixon getting opportunities in that backfield. We are talking about just one of the most explosive running backs in college football last year. All right, let me give you an example right here. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry. Let me give you the names of guys that also averaged 6.4 yards or more with 130 carries. All right. It's Eli Sanders for New Mexico, who transferred to USC. Probably going to go to the NFL if he wins that job. They got another JUCO guy over there at USC that's pretty good. Ashton Genty, we know him. Isaac Brown, we know him as the best true freshman running back in college football last year. Jeremiah Love is already getting Heisman hype. RJ Harvey, all right, NFL guy. DJ Giddens, NFL guy. Nick Singleton will be an NFL guy for Penn State. Caleb Johnson is an NFL guy, drafted in the third round. And then Jaden Nixon. That is the kind of company that Jaden Nixon is in when we're talking about his efficiency carrying the football. Granted, he was running behind an offensive line that was exceedingly more talented than probably the defensive line talent that he was going to play week to week over there at Western Michigan. But he is good, right? UCF brought him in. They got a new coach over there, Scott Frost. I mean, a new old coach, right? Miles Montgomery is a solid running back there. He got carries, in that backfield. He was a former transfer from Cincinnati. He could definitely, they could split carries for sure. But that's what Jaden Nixon did at Western Michigan, and he still had 900 yards. So this dude is going to be sick, and he's going to, in my opinion, shoot up draft boards, right? In this process, I think people are going to get their hands on this film and be like, oh my gosh, he's actually explosive. Now, UCF is losing a particularly really good offensive line from last year, but they still have some guys on that team. Even though you're replacing four guys, you got some decent transfers in there that I think are going to be pretty solid, and some guys that you've been waiting to get some reps. So I think Jaden Nixon is a stud. I think he will continue to be a stud. I think he's a guy that you need to know, all right, heading into this 2025 season.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that season too, you said he was splitting carries, but when Western Michigan was like at the top of the standings in the MAC last year, when they won 5 of 6 games in the 6 game stretch, it was Jaden Nixon who was getting it done. You talk about 5 games having over 100 yards in that stretch, so 5 of 6 games over 100 yard stretch, and then 10 touchdowns in those 6 games. It was highly efficient. You're talking about explosive runs, longs in those games of 92, 54, 57, 43, like big time explosive runs, things that Scott Frost and this new offense will be desperate for, I think, in terms of what they can do and when they can be at their best. So who is Jaden Nixon? If you don't remember him, He was at Oklahoma State. You mentioned that, and the reason why it didn't quite work out there, he started off pretty fine. He was like kind of a all honorable mention freshman, in the Big 12 there, but he was running behind a guy named Ollie Gordon, and that kind of
Whoops.
just he kind of broke out, and that's what happens. So he ends up at Western Michigan, finds his way back to the Big 12 via UCF, like you said. Going to be excited to talk about him and watch him. He's a guy that's definitely interesting, like you said. Not the biggest guy, but 5'10", 185, so doesn't need 25, 30 carries a game. But when he does get those 15 touches a game, you got to find that for him because he will be effective for you. It'll be a nice change of pace no matter what in that Scott Frost offense.
Here's a guy that you and I both love talking about that you put on your list. Devon Dampier, formerly hailing from New Mexico, heading over to Utah to be quarterback there, following his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck. CD, take the floor. Why is Devon Dampier a guy that we have to look out for in 2025?
Well, first of all, he's coming over with his offense coordinator, Jason Beck. That's why we love this, right? That's what when we talked about that being an underrated get, for Kyle Whittingham, right, and for Utah. Obviously, that offense the past couple years has not been up to standard. It just has not, and part of that was due to poor quarterback play. We think Devon Dampier is going to be a guy to fix that. If you are not familiar with his game, right, he is super electric to watch. He was super frisky for a not a crazy talented team in New Mexico, and obviously Jason Beck got the best out of him at offensive coordinator there, with Bronco Mendenhall. So that was a lot of fun. He's really interesting. So last year, going to go through some stats here. These stats, they won't necessarily like super wow you, but it's definitely, I think, like worth mentioning in terms of what he did. Like the eye test just matters. So he passed for 2,700 yards last year, 58% completion percentage rounding up there. 12 touchdowns to 12 interception ratio is not great. Absolutely not. We understand that. But it's also, you have to understand, he's playing at New Mexico with New Mexico talent and all that kind of stuff. So you'll think he'll get better production from a very good offensive line in Utah this season. So obviously he's got to cut back on that ratio there. He only took 5 sacks, though. So that was pretty impressive. And that has to do a lot with his escapability. And plus, what he does on the ground is really impressive. It was 1,100 yards on the ground, 19 touchdowns. Holy cow. Yeah, sign me up for that if you're Utah and Kyle Whittingham. Utah fans, you got a good one in Devon Dampier. And by the way, too, like maybe he didn't get the big time love in terms of like when you were talking about the highest rated, transfer portal quarterbacks, guys that are, which by the way, the transfer portal, like those 24/7 rankings and rivals, those are about draft picks and like what these guys will be, in a couple years coming out of school or maybe a year or two and going to the NFL. Like the reason why Devon Dampier is not rated super high is because he's 5'10", 198. So like that's part of it. It doesn't make him a worse quarterback. We've seen plenty of college quarterbacks have plenty of success being that small in stature, especially if you know how to avoid hits, which he does, especially if you know how to move around in the pocket, which he does. And if you put an offensive system around him, like Jason Beck has in the past, good things will happen for Utah. And that's something that we're obviously super excited about.
And I think you underplayed almost like the offensive line that Utah's going to have. Like this is going to be a potentially top 10, potentially top 5 group, and relative to the schedule that they're playing, like they're right in the mix for teams that can make the college football playoffs. A lot in part to do, even with all of these skill position transfers that they're going to have. Like this offensive line can do a lot of work, and when you're small like that, like you said, getting interior pressure on a short quarterback is trouble. All right, but you got some anchors there on the interior, right? You have some absolute anchors. You love guys like Kump, uh, and then your tackles are pretty nuts. Fanu and Lomu, I mean, both NFL draft prospects as we speak. So yeah, I'm in love with the offensive coordinator quarterback relationship the same way that you are. And even though he's a little bit undersized, I'm with you. Devin Dampier's a guy that we should be watching in 2025. I'm going to go head over now to the most underrated offensive lineman in college football. And everyone's going to be like, oh, is it this player? Oh, is it this player? Like everyone has their pick. Like, oh, such and such. This offensive lineman for my team is the most underrated offensive lineman in college football. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. All right. And I'm going to tell you why it's Brady Wilson of Virginia. Okay. Brady Wilson transferred to Virginia this offseason. Okay. He comes from UAB. He has been a 3-year starter for them. And he has been phenomenal. All right. He was the anchor on that team in 2020. Well, he played part time, but he was a huge component of that team in 2022 when they wound up having Dwayne McBride leading the college football in rushing yards, right? When Brian Vincent was the interim head coach there. Our boy, Lou Monroe, head coach Brian Vincent. 2023, they set a school record with him as the starting center for the whole season, 450 yards a game. Jacob Zeno behind the helm, right? 2024 looked a little bit different, okay? But he was phenomenal still. Like in all of those games, he gave the fewest number of penalties with centers over 800 snaps. He was the third highest graded PFF center in college football, over 400 snaps or 300 snaps or whatever it was. He was fantastic. And what did I say? One sack only, like in his entire career. He had 2,300 collegiate snaps, over what is it, 1,200 pass blocking snaps. He's only given up one sack. And you'd be like, okay, well, sure he gets love from his conference or like his media members in that conference. I'm sure he. Oh, was he first team All AC? No. Oh, was he second team? No. Was he 13? No. Was he even an honorable mention for All AC team in 2024? He was not. Brady Wilson, as undersized as he is, plays very good football there in the interior, and I think Virginia got a good one. And I just think he's way too under the radar. I've never heard anyone talk about him on social media. I've never heard anyone say his name other than maybe on the broadcast. He is such a good football player. He was on the Remington watch list in 2023. Like people just forget. And yeah, still no all conference accolades. Not even honorable mention stuff. Like that is crazy. Now, was he the best center in his conference? No, Army had a pretty good one, all right, that we can all argue is very, 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 very solid, all right? But come on, where is the Brady Wilson love, man? Where's the Brady Wilson love?
Yeah, just terrible. A guy, like you said, super undervalued, and at a position of need. You're talking about Virginia. They brought in plenty of portal guys on the offensive line. They brought a kid from JMU, Illinois, Louisville, and they obviously have some returners there coming back. So they're looking for that to be a point of contention. Obviously, that they've hit pretty hard this portal. They need a guy to protect Chandler Morris, who's coming in from North Texas. And if you are Virginia and this coaching staff here, like Tony Elliott, like this is an important season because obviously, expectations aren't necessarily sky high at a program like Virginia, but I think you got a pretty good schedule, right, to take advantage of this. Potentially, you're looking at bowl games, potentially 7 wins that you're looking at. So obviously, at the position of center, a leadership position, this is massive for you in the ACC there, and obviously someone that's gonna be well, and obviously like gonna impact too, like Chandler Morris and guys around him, what he does and making everyone else better.
Let's talk about a guy, an SEC running back. That's really good. All right, he got his opportunities last year due to injuries. Jadan Baugh of Florida is going to be running behind an elite offensive line next year in next to a quarterback that is also mobile. I mean, Jaden Ball, this was a guy you put on your list, CD. So you convince us, why is this the guy that you're watching in 2025?
Yeah, I can't really find a better, more dynamic, sophomore duo at quarterback and running back than DJ Lagway and Jaden Ball. Jaden Ball, obviously, you watch him run, super physical, hard to tackle, but he's still explosive in space. I love what he does. And he was only a freshman, too. He was still getting his body ready, still adjusting. Obviously, learning on the fly in the SEC is not easy to do. And holy cow, was he fantastic once he started picking up and they started giving him more carries because you had injuries. We were looking at this Florida in early 2024. We were looking at this running back room as a room that's like hopefully a strength for you because of all the other moving pieces around you, because of the tough bruising schedule, because of the tough road games. You wanted to be able to run the football, and you had injuries, you had transfers out there with ETN going out there to Georgia, and here we go, Jadan Baugh, a guy that you flipped from Arkansas late in that cycle, coming out as a true freshman, being a very valuable player for you. He is one of the keystone players, not only in this Florida team, but in the conference of the SEC, in my opinion, and what he can do and the impact he can have for him. 6'1", 227, Atlanta, Georgia kid. I mean, he was fantastic last year. In really only starting about half the year, a little over half the year, he had 133 carries for 673 yards. That's 5.1 yards per carry in the SEC. Is pretty darn good to go with 7 touchdowns. I do want to see him take a step in the receiving category. Now, I think part of that was due to some limitations and kind of the revolving door you had at quarterback in terms of with Graham Mertz and then DJ Lagway, and then Lagway got hurt, and then you're back to Lagway. So we'll see if that obviously progresses. And if you want progression in Lagway, it will be nice to have a guy that you could check down to out of the backfield, and he can give you a nice 10, 15-yard catch or catch and run. So, yeah, Jaden Baugh is a monster.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a true freshman in the SEC has 700 scrimmage yards and 8 touchdowns, I mean, you're smiling, right? And the offensive line, right? We don't need to go into like the details of like whomst will be there, but it's it's going to be good, right? And having a dynamic quarterback like DJ Lagway and the offensive coordinator situation there is weird. I really try to understand, why they have so many coordinators. What do they have, like 3 defensive coordinators and like 2 offensive coordinators? Whatever. Uh, yeah, he's a stud. And I think like if he were to go in the portal, I think you would be looking at, I mean, everyone would be going after this kid. I mean, with the eligibility that he has, right? We're talking about just a true sophomore who has the frame to endure an entire SEC season. He played in all 13 games. I mean, this guy. I mean, with in last year, you had significant injuries across the SEC at the running back position, right? Like across the entire SEC, it was a huge problem. You get a guy like this guy, as young as he is, as explosive as he is, as athletic as he is, as big as he is with his frame to be durable. Yeah, sign us up for a Jadan Baugh legendary 2025 campaign.
Yeah, run the ball. Run the ball.
Run the ball. Well, you talked about Jadan Baugh getting flipped from Arkansas, right? But Arkansas landed on a true freshman running back of their own. His name is Braylen Russell. That's what I want to talk about today. All right. I think Braylen Russell is a stud. This kid, we're talking about a guy almost 240 pounds, right? He's just a true sophomore, right? He is so good. All right. Look, in Arkansas, I get they went and added running backs in the portal. That is for depth purposes, right? Like I could definitely see AJ Green, carving out like a bit of a role, right? I can see uh, that running back room. You get that New Mexico State running back. I believe Mike Washington, I believe, is there. Correct me if I'm wrong, CD. But so like, there's going to be maybe other members in that backfield. But I mean, when he spelled Jaquin Jackson, he was really effective. I mean, we're talking about a guy uh, that's going to be running behind a much improved offensive line. And if you don't believe me, all right, let's just wait. All right. You're getting Robinson over there sliding in at left tackle, right? Kid from Georgia Tech who was a stud at Georgia Tech. The reason why he can slide at left tackle is because you're sliding down all SEC left tackle, and all SEC left tackle is sliding down to guard. All right. And then you get a really nice centerpiece, right? That came from UCF because they changed coaches. You get a nice, huge right guard that, Marion Harris that's played there. And then the question mark, of course, is right tackle. But, you may have found something in an Oregon transfer there that's freaking guy. It's huge, right? You might have absolute maulers across the board, right? And I don't think people are talking about that enough. And you're also in the backfield with a dynamic quarterback like Taylor Green, who is a threat to run the ball himself. Like Braylen Russell, as young as he is, as huge as he is, and in a situation that I don't think people are talking enough about in terms of it might be a beneficial situation from him. Like this offense might be good. Like they were a leading passing attack last year, right? And Jaquin Jackson, before he got banged up, like was in the race for being the leading rusher in the SEC. Like the offense was not the question mark last year, and you were potentially improving that offensive line. Sure, you have questions at receiver for that team because you lose everyone in that receiver room plus your tight end, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to hinder the run game too much. I think Braylen Russell has a chance to absolutely explode this year. And I am in love with this game. He's huge. He's sneakily quick, right? And at the second level, he can make a little cut right there to make a linebacker miss. But he wore Tennessee out, right? I mean, he's a very good player that people need to be looking out for in 2025. CD?
Yeah, 6 foot, 6'1", if you will, 250. Is that what he's listed at? I think he's cut down a little bit, 240, but he, I mean,
Eddie
holy
Lacy.
cow. Yeah, yeah. You talk about bell cow. Yeah, it was fantastic. Like you said, it doesn't come. We talked about with Jadan Baugh. When you have like flashes in the SEC, especially at the running back position of like, first of all, like having the body to do that is really impressive to be 18, 19 years old to do that. Number two, like those things just kind of transit. Like you don't see a lot of those guys fizz out. And it's something we're looking forward to. If you ask me, or you ask Arkansas fans, two of the more like I think memorable games last year is that Tennessee game and then Mississippi State when you guys ran it up on them, right? And I know Mississippi State wasn't the best team in the world last year, but the fact that a true freshman like started instead of Jaquin Jackson who was hurt, 16 carries, 175 yards, including a 75-yard rush. Yeah, holy cow for that. And then he was the leading rusher in that Tennessee game when you had all those crazy injuries and things. Wow, things you end up pulling out a win there. Those are just bright spots that you, if you're Arkansas and you went 6-6 last year, or I guess 7-6 with the bowl game, and it wasn't, obviously your most like best production like that. Those are things that you can kind of hold on to and move forward to with what you got here. It's very intriguing, and obviously, like you said, you've got other guys in there. I just love the fit. You talked about the offensive line. You talked about Taylor Green and what they can do in this offense. They're bringing in a lot of portal guys, especially in that wide receiver room, which guys that are exciting, no doubt about it. But definitely, I think when Taylor Green is at his best, it's when he is running the football and when he has a running mate that is running the football hard and effective and efficient. Like that's going to be where Arkansas makes their money this year.
CD, the last guy that we're going to talk about today, there's a particular defender on Alabama's football team, all right, that you like, I think fans are like, but maybe like the way that traditional Alabama defensive players are normally known to national fans and the casual fans, people might not know who we're about to talk about. CD, would you like to introduce us to that player?
Yeah, it's Quay Rousseau. Quay Rousseau. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. I think I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, but he's outside linebacker, edge guy for Alabama, 6'2", 250, just around there. He'll be entering year 3 for Alabama. I think it's going to be his redshirt sophomore year, and this is where you see a lot of those former 5-star guys that have waited their turn, developed, taking their time, getting better and better with Alabama. Also, too, last year was a new season with a new coordinator, a new fit, a new scheme, all that kind of stuff. A lot of changes in that offseason. I think a lot of guys in that program, especially on the defense side of the ball, I'm excited for them to take this jump, and I think Russaw will do that. He has the athleticism to do it, right? He's got quick twitch. He is a guy that was running track in high school, running 11.6 in the 100-meter dash, also throwing shot put. Guys that you just couldn't grow in a lab, much better than Quay Russaw. Obviously, he battled some injuries last year, and maybe he didn't put up the prototypical big time production. He only had a sack last year, but I think you saw more and more as he started to do better and better, be more disruptive. I think this year he takes that step. He gets to the quarterback, he gets home, he causes pressure. And I think, too, with other guys in that defensive line, James Smith, et cetera, like guys that will also take steps, I think will help him especially be able to really get after it.
Yeah, and he's very similar, at least what I believe, in terms of body type to new true freshman Justin Hill. And I've seen, Russaw talk about Justin Hill, and like how they're like learning from each other. Hill's kind of coming in, put on like 20 pounds basically since he's gotten to campus, and he's learning a lot from Russaw. And you just see this guy, like as young as he is, like being an instant leader. You're seeing this guy will probably have a greater impact, in terms of like from a pass rushing perspective, a production perspective. You might have, and by the way, the rest of that defensive line is good, right? Tim Keenan, LT Overton, like he
Yeah.
is going to have his opportunities to make stuff happen, right? He just got to take it. And the reality is, like, it's going to be an exciting watch. This Alabama football team, I know people are prone to pooping on Kalen DeBoer, and like, oh, he's not Nick Saban. Oh, where's Alabama going to be with it? I think this is going to be a very exciting team to watch in 2025. And it's going to be because of elite players like him. Like this entire football team, as Alabama normally has been in the past, it's NFL talent everywhere you look, right? You just had your question at quarterback. And this is another one of those NFL talents, right? This. So I'm really excited. A Alabama grown, Alabama native, playing
Yeah.
for his home state college. And this guy, we had one sack last year. It's going to be more than that this year.
For sure. He had that interception too, which was, a freak play for athletically wise for him. And also like you talked about too, like I'll throw Kelby Collins in there. That's a guy coming over from Florida. There's like depth and differences and like guys that are here too in schemes, et cetera, getting better and better, hopefully healthy as well. That's just gonna make Quay Rousseau like that much more dangerous because especially if LT Overton takes the step that everyone thinks he's going to athletically or production wise, and then on the other side too with Rousseau, I mean, yeah, it could be very dangerous. We talked about too at the beginning. We open it up with like these are guys that are difference makers and guys that will be potentially defining conference races and therefore playoff races and all that kind of good stuff. Like Russaw in this pass rush for Alabama, to me, is one of the biggest X factors in the SEC with what they can do and that talent they have in that back end there. If you can get some pressure in the front end and put these quarterbacks in a whole world of hurt there in the SEC.
That's going to do it for us. Those are 6 guys that we want you guys to pay attention to in 2025. Not saying that there aren't other guys, all right? And maybe we'll get to some. Maybe we'll do some future episodes like that. But look, we just wanted an excuse to talk about these guys, all right? So, look, if you like the content, like the video, all right? It's that simple, okay? It's a really easy rule that we have here. And if you're interested in stuff like this and you're interested in our preseason previews, which are going to be coming out here in like the next month and a half before the season starts, that's our best content that we have. So make sure you're locked in for that, and make sure you're locked in too. In the season when we're giving weekly updates, weekly previews, weekly recaps. So make sure you're staying tuned to the Redshirt Sophomore. CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, hope you guys enjoy the content. Obviously, let us know who we missed, guys, that you potentially think we could talk about if you want us to keep doing this kind of series, as well as what other extra thoughts you have on these players we talked about. Make sure you guys look into these guys. Remember, when these guys are balling out on Saturdays in the fall, we don't say we didn't tell you because we did.
Exactly. And we'll see y'all in the next one.